One of my favorite parts of the day is pleasure. In fact, yeah, it really is. Because there's just something about being able to talk about certain topics, cover certain things with people who are actually interested in the subject that is kind of like freeing, if that makes sense. Because you got to consider, like, at least in our everyday lives, it's very difficult to find time or people with time who actually like to discuss personal development or to discuss business development and so on. Could be because lack of ability or just lack of time, but you know, it's just not really all that common. And without, blaming anybody, but most people just want to relax or either they're working or they're out of work and they just want to chill and don't want to think about anything else, which is understandable. I don't blame them for it. Right. So today we are talking about the power of silence. Good morning, Cecilia. 谢谢所有的朋友们，谢谢你的爱心。We are talking about the power of silence, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not too sure what actually brought up this topic for me today. I think it was something from Human Nature. It's the book by Robert Greene. So, because I was just listening to it in the morning, go for my walk, but I don't remember specifically like what part of the story or what part of the book was talking about silence. Maybe not yet, but there are techniques that people use to sort of manipulate others to give more information or to make them feel uncomfortable in certain situations, so on and so forth. And I don't know, it kind of just struck me as, oh yeah, I remember like using silence is a very powerful technique when it comes to communications, depending on what you want to do, right? It could be used in many ways. Silence can be used to manipulate people in a bad way. But silence can also be used to make people feel more confident and to let them know that you are paying attention, that you are listening to them, in fact. So we have our 10 talking points. We're going to run through them in a bit. But I'm just going to give you guys a general overview of my personal thoughts about the power of silence, right? When we get to the talking points, it may seem a little bit redundant because, like I always tell you guys, the talking points are generated just to make sure that we can stay on topic. But when I talk about the subject off of my own head, it's going to be based off my experiences. It's going to be based on the things that I've learned personally. So we use these talking points just to sort of fill in the gaps because at any given time, we're not going to remember absolutely everything. So, off the top of my head, when I think about silence, like using silence as a skill, the first thing that comes to my mind is when you use silence as a way to get others to volunteer information. Let me paint a scenario for you. Let's say you are having a conversation with someone and you believe that they did something wrong or they did something that was not appropriate, right? Sometimes all you really need to do is ask a general question in the direction of what the situation is and let them talk. You don't need to respond. You don't need to rebuttal anything they say, right? If they deny something, If they try to argue with you, just don't argue. You just listen and you stay very silent. And eventually, they just continue to dig themselves into a hole. And at the end of it, for the most part, end up either confessing or saying, like, oh, it wasn't what they meant to do, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, being able to use silence in that way is very powerful because what happens is when you are fighting back or arguing with someone, you're just giving them more energy to continue to argue with you and to even accuse you of being an aggressor or being confrontational and so on and so forth. If you are silent, it's very difficult to be accused of being an aggressor or to be accused of being confrontational, right? That's the first thing. And then, of course, the other thing that the silence itself is very loud. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the expression, the silence is so loud here. So it's when you're in one of those situations that everyone is quiet because the situation is so tense. The situation feels so like serious. So the silence is very loud. Hmm. So this is the first thing that comes to my mind when we're talking about the power of silence. The next part, the next thing that comes to my mind is using silence as a way to give confidence. And it is going to be a combination of silence and body language. So when someone is speaking to you or telling you a story, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be in an interview, it can just be in a conversation with a friend, whatever. Being silent most of the time is probably one of the best things you can do because a lot of people, well, they don't understand why, but they feel like you're a great conversationalist because you don't speak or you speak very little. So I think, honestly speaking, one of the biggest mistakes that many of us do when we are trying to make new friends or new leads and build relationships, one of the biggest mistakes is that we feel the need to always have a story of our own. So if someone tells you, for example, oh, yesterday my cat died, something like this, really sad story, right? Oh, yesterday my cat died, and I feel so horrible. We had him for so many years. I love my cat so much. I feel like really one of the worst things that we can do is say, "Oh yeah, I used to have a dog. Yeah, my dog ran away like 5 years ago." Listen, that's cool and everything, right? It might feel like you are connecting, you're empathizing with the person, but the reality is that if they are going through a certain experience at that point in time, right? The best thing that we can do is just to listen to them and not actually try to either one up them or try to match their energy with your own story or with your own experience because that's not what is necessary at that point in time, right? We also tend to do the same thing, especially when something good happens, right? So let's say, for example, this guy he got a promotion at work, right? He's like, oh yeah, I just got promoted, and I got a good raise and all this stuff. You're like, oh yeah, I was promoted. I was promoted a few months ago, and I made this much money. Blah blah blah. No, no one cares. No one cares. We don't need to always one up another person. We don't always need to have our own story to match their energy or to be better than them or something like that. It's not necessary. We can congratulate them and we can ask them more information. They're happy about what happened to them. They're in the moment. Let them have the moment. Let them have the moment because they're going to remember that and they're going to appreciate it later. At least they're going to appreciate you for listening, right? So when it comes to those conversations, one part is silence and the other part is body language, like I said earlier. The portion that is body language is going to be more about the nodding, when you're literally nodding your head, like, mm-hmm, yes, okay, I get it. That makes sense. Ah, right? You're showing understanding or acknowledgement. You use your head, you use your eyes. You can even use your hands, right? Like, okay, a lot of people put their arms or their hands to show. Oh God, I can't show you guys because I'm not on video. They will hold their chin with their hands and just nod, like, okay, cool, interesting, yeah. So under those circumstances, you're using a combination of your silence and body language to show the other person that you are listening, that you are understanding, and that you may even be in agreement, right? So to me, when it comes to the power of silence, these are the two main things that show up immediately in my head. Number one, getting people to speak more than they normally should, volunteer information, potentially getting themselves in trouble. Or number two, giving a person the space to tell their story, tell their part, and just actively and patiently listen to them. Both things are great. Great use, great techniques. Yes. In a way, I think yes, a lot of people may believe that if you try to match someone else's story, you are showing them that you understand how they feel. But it's very difficult to say that because we all have very distinct experiences. We all have different levels of attachment to people and objects, things, etc. So we may or may not actually know how that person is feeling at that moment, at that point in time. They could be going through something a lot less serious than you did, or a lot less critical, or even more critical, or more serious. So, what I would do personally is I reserve those things, like my side or my perspective, I reserve that for when someone asks for it, right? If someone is talking to me about their experience or something that they're going through, if they don't ask me, hey, do you know what I mean? Have you gone through this? Do you understand? If they don't ask me, I don't say, right? Because they didn't ask me. They just want someone to listen most of the time. So I would definitely reserve whatever my side is or my story or my ideas unless the person specifically asks me, has this happened to you before? Something like this. In that point in time, then okay, I would share a little bit with them about my own experience to show understanding. But in reality, most of the time, especially when people are in a heightened emotional state, most of the time they just want you to listen. They just want someone who's going to listen to them, at least for a moment. And that's basically it. Now, there is one more situation where I like to use silence as a technique. And that is when someone, in my opinion, when someone is overly aggressive, or if I feel like the way that they're speaking to me or the way that they are addressing me is not appropriate or is not suitable to a certain situation, then I like to use silence. Do you guys understand what I mean? I'll give you an example. Let's say you have your boss, right? And it turns out that your boss was trying to get a report from you. You sent the report, but they didn't receive it. Or maybe they received it, but they didn't remember that they received it. So maybe the email is checked as read or something like that. And then the boss goes to you and he says, Yolanda, I hope you don't mind. I'll use your name as an example. Yolanda, I told you 2 days ago, I'm waiting for you to send me this email. Like, what's taking you so long? And Yolanda's confused. Yolanda's like, huh? I sent you the report 2 days ago when you asked me to, right? but your boss is being aggressive and he's like barking at you and judging you and all this stuff. So in that moment, if I were Yolanda, right, I don't even argue with the boss. I don't even argue. I sent it to you already. What do you mean? Did you check your email? No, 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 no. I let them. I use this opportunity. I let them be mean. I let them be aggressive. I let them just act out and I keep silent. Why do I keep silent? Because I'm going to allow my boss to step on me so they can feel good about themselves because my boss is a superior. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The reason I remain silent is because I know that I'm right. I know that I'm right. And 5 minutes from now or 10 minutes from now, he's also going to know that I'm right. He's going to know that he's wrong. Why? Because I sent the email. It has the date marked on it. I just need to take a screenshot or a picture of that email, print it out, go to his desk and put it in front of him. Put a circle around the date. I don't need to say anything. Just show. In that moment, what do you think is going to happen in most situations? Ooh, I love that. Yo, Yolanda, that was so good. Hello, pomegranate. Yolanda says, when others don't make sense, keep silent. That was amazing. I love that comment. Exactly. So in this situation, I keep silent because I know a few moments from now, my boss is going to look like an ass. He's going to look like an ass and he's going to be very regretful and he's going to feel very, very sympathetic to what he just did. And then what happens is that in the future, this gives you more power and more leverage because your boss just embarrassed themselves. You see what I'm saying? But you always got to remember, you need to be able to prove these things. Never argue it. Never fight about it. Because you know what happens? Let's say Yolanda decided, I'm going to argue with my boss right now because my boss is saying I didn't send the report and I sent it to him. So I'm going to yell back at my boss. I sent it to you 2 days ago. Da, 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 da. What happens? In that situation, then Yolanda's wrong. Because what is Yolanda doing? Yolanda is now becoming the aggressor. Yolanda's the one that is acting out and fighting and arguing in the office and trying to make her boss look bad, etc. So now the boss can make up some excuse or justification to say like, okay, Yolanda's not a good employee. She's very aggressive. She's not receptive, blah, 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 right? But if you're silent, no one can do anything. And then you just show the proof as it is. Let them embarrass themselves. Let that melt into their brain and into their body. That is like, hey, you messed up really bad. And I did what I was supposed to do. But you don't need to say it. Because when you don't use any words, they have to imagine how you feel. They have to imagine what you're thinking. They have to imagine how angry you are because you're not saying it. So it's even worse. I feel so bad. I feel so bad saying this because I feel like it's very manipulative. But think about it, guys. Think about it. When you know that you didn't do anything wrong, right? Or when you judge another person, when you are aggressive or rude to another person, and then you realize that it's not their fault, that they didn't deserve it. If they don't say anything to you at all, what happens? You are in your own head wondering and imagining, oh my God, this is so terrible. Oh my God, they must be so angry. Oh my God, what are they thinking? Right? So it's almost like a self-inflicted torture because the person is not saying anything. They're not saying anything bad. They're not saying anything good. They're not saying, oh, it's okay. But they're also not being angry. So you just have to deal with the torture of just wondering how they actually feel and what's going on. I think it's lovely. I think that's the best type of revenge. Hmm. Right. Don't give them an excuse. Exactly. I see. Okay, I was just reading through the comments really quickly. Excuse me. I remember I did this back in the day, like 10 years ago when I used to have a boss. I did something like this where I was being judged. I was being judged and accused and ridiculed for some nonsense that I was actually not responsible for. And I was just saying, okay, that's it. Oh, okay. Man, this guy did not sleep for 3 days after that, I'm sure. And then I quit. It was wonderful. To be fair, I've been my own boss ever since. Ah, yes, Yolanda. I do want to point something out, right? Because Yolanda says, don't fire me, boss. I'll keep silent. I do want to point something out. So, yes, you can keep silent, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't correct them. You should definitely correct them and just give them the evidence. Put the evidence right in front of the table, right in front of them. Put a big circle around it, print it out, and don't say anything. That's the best. All right, so let's see. So those are the three things that came just from my own perspective, my own idea. And now we're going to run through some talking points. Mhm. So, first part, people fill in the silence. And guys, please tell me if the music is loud so I can lower it. But if the music is like just okay, then we'll just keep it. But let me know, okay? So, talking point, people fill the silence. After asking a question or making a statement, silence makes others feel uncomfortable. So they tend to fill it by sharing more information than they planned. Great for digging deeper in conversations. Yeah, I get you, buddy. Dude, can you give me what is the pinyin for your name? I'm gonna pin up your comment right now. What is the pinyin for your name? Because I can't read those. Maybe it's like Judai, Shitai. I'm not sure. Lu Wei. Ah, Lu Wei. Okay, I'll remember then. Lu Wei, Lu Wei, Lu Wei, Lu Wei. What does it have a meaning? Like what does your name actually mean, Lu Wei? Yeah, I like Fraser's perspective. So Fraser Wong says, I will show my advice and respect the boss's advice if he insists, but the boss should take the responsibility. I like that. Yes. Oh man, Yolanda. Dude, Yolanda's gonna be the new host. So Yolanda says, when you don't know how to answer at that moment, it's better to remain silent. Absolutely. This is another thing about the power of silence is that especially when you are caught in a moment, if you are just silent, at least it gives you the time to really think about the situation and prepare a better response, prepare a better way to deal with it. Because most of the time, when we are in a intense situation like that, we actually don't know what is the best way to respond. So the best thing that we can do is just remain silent and listen, get as much information as possible. And once you have what you need, you can prepare a response. You can prepare a way to sort of get back to the situation. Okay, I see. Thank you, Lu. I'm a little bit confused. It seems that people are dropping gifts, but it's actually doesn't show me. I can see gift numbers going up, but I don't see who actually dropped the gifts except for Cecilia early on. It's weird. This interface is on my phone right now, so it's not the same as when I used to use the computer. Excuse me. All right, let's continue. So, people fill the silence. Let's say, for example, you were going on a date with somebody, guy or girl, whatever, and you want to get more information about them and their dating life and all that stuff. Yeah, one of the best things you can do is be silent when they are talking and allow them to talk more. And then when you're silent still, they're going to talk more. So if you tell them, so you've been in many relationships, have you, right? It seems like you've been in a lot of relationships. You can say that because you can make an excuse like, well, the way that you talk to people, it seems you're really confident. It seems you are really good at talking to others and you understand how to convince people. So I feel like you've probably been in a lot of relationships. After that, don't say anything. Just let them go because they will talk for hours about themselves. And then you can really see if this is a person that you actually want to continue dating or not. But yes, when there is silence, it does tend to make people uncomfortable and people feel like they need to fill the silence. Otherwise, it's an awkward silence. It's a loud silence. It's uncomfortable. 谢谢送礼物的朋友们. Thank you very much for the gifts. I appreciate you. Now, the other piece of advice that I would add to this, though, to this talking point, is that we need to be comfortable with silence, right? So if you're listening, right, you're listening to this podcast right now, keep in mind when there is silence in the room, when you feel there's an awkward silence, you need to remember that silence can be used as a tool. Silence can be used as a way to either get information or to make you feel uncomfortable and so on and so forth. So keep this in mind and understand that silence is okay. It's going to go against your natural instinct. I understand that. But if you are conscious of it, if you keep it in your mind that, oh, yeah, silence can be used. So I should be careful and let's just be silent. Let's be silent and let's be comfortable. So learn to be comfortable in silence with people in general. And I think it's okay. You know, many years ago, I would go to some restaurants and I would see some couples, like they could be like boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife, whatever. I would see some couples like having dinner together, not saying a word. Now, it's a little bit different. It's not the same as like they're staring at their phones and they're sending messages and they're having dinner and they don't talk to each other. But they're just sitting there quietly eating, sitting with each other and eating. And I thought that was so I thought that was so strange. I'm like, that and the more experience I have, I, you know, I found that actually when people can be together in silence comfortably, okay, I don't mean like you're angry with someone so you don't want to talk to them. I mean, when you can be in silence with another person, it doesn't matter if it's your friend or someone you're dating or a coworker, but you guys can just be in silence together and be comfortable. I think at that moment, you understand that you actually might have a really good relationship because silence is one of those things that makes most of us feel uncomfortable. It makes most of us feel awkward. So if you can be in silence with someone and be comfortable with them just being there in silence, then you probably have a very good relationship. You guys probably trust each other enough to be in silence together. I think that's pretty awesome now. Let me know what you guys think. But that's basically what I've picked up from it. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember if you are enjoying this conversation, please hit that follow button. And if you want to get a little membership badge or VIP badge, so I make sure to answer your questions and pin up your comments, hit the gold button right after. Thank you very much. And also remember, you can add me on WeChat. Just use my name. It's the same name as the channel, Comet Live, Komitlive. And my name is Comet. And also, this platform, I only broadcast audio right now because of rules. But I do broadcast this on video as well on another platform. And if you are interested in seeing on video the live stream, you can send me a message and I can send you a link or whatever. But it's going to be on a different platform that maybe most cannot access. All right, let's go to the next talking point. Builds anticipation. A pause after making a key point or statement creates suspense and makes your words feel more impactful, giving them extra weight. I love this. I love this. Very nice. So, building anticipation. I'm sure you guys have probably seen like either some CEO or some presenter for a big company or some politician that when they speak and they want to make a point and they want people to feel that point, they go silent for a moment. So let's say, for example, if I'm giving a speech or a lecture about relationships, this kind of stuff, and then I say, like, it's very interesting how we tend to blame our partners for so many things when they go wrong, but we never take the time to stop and think, I chose that person. So tell me, guys, in that moment when I went silent, what were you thinking about? What happened in your head? Write it in the comments. Tell me. I'll give you guys like 1 minute. So it is one of those things that not only gives time for the speaker, but it also forces you as a listener to think, maybe he has a point. He's like, I said, what did you think happened, Andy? Lost Wi-Fi. That's funny. Yeah, I get you. Well, the point of doing that is to emphasize what was just said so people have a moment to think about it, to process it, and to feel it. Because if I say something really important and then I just keep talking, then that important point kind of just goes away. It just fades and you forget about it. So if you want to be able to emphasize a certain point, it's important to give it a moment of silence, give it a pause so that it has more weight, more power. Let me try with something more simple and relatable. So, in a few days, Apple is going to be releasing the iPhone 16. What's interesting is that it looks exactly like the iPhone 15 and has very little differences. Hopefully, during the pause, you took a moment to picture it in your head and you're picturing the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 15, and you're like, yeah, it's the same damn thing. Hopefully. So, yes, using silence to build anticipation, to make a key point, or to add extra weight to your argument, essentially. Okay, let's see. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go to our next talking point. All right, so next talking point. Oh, 1 second. All right. Next one enhances active listening. By staying silent, you show you are fully engaged, which lets you listen more effectively and understand the other person's message better. So, so true. So, guys, I don't know if you've ever seen my live streams before, especially when I do them on video. So, whenever I have somebody speaking during the live stream, when they join me and they speak about their experience or they want to ask a question or story, they usually take a while to get to the point. And you will notice what I do is I have my notebook. I always have a notebook with me and I'm writing notes because as they speak, I have to make notes so that I can find exactly what the key point is. What is the key point that they're trying to get to? What are the questions they're asking? And then I organize it in my notebook. So I understand that this is something that's necessary because usually when people call into the live stream, they have like 2 minutes, up to 3 minutes to speak because we don't let them stay like long time. And so they try to sort of rush everything they want to say and crunch it all together. And I understand that. So I make notes. I don't say anything for the most part. And I just make notes so that I can get exactly to their point. And then I repeat their points just to get confirmation that that is what they meant to say. And this is just showing that I am actively listening to you. I am paying attention to what you have to say. I care about what you have to say. And I want to make sure I understand you correctly. So, yes, silence is very powerful in that way, where you can sort of give someone else confidence and reassurance that they are being listened to, which is super huge. Of course, we all like to know that someone is listening when we are speaking, that they actually care about what we have to say, right? Very nice, Olivia. Very, very nice. Okay, so yes, that is active listening. Let's go to the next one. Observing nonverbal cues. So I believe, honestly speaking, this deserves a live stream all by itself. Nonverbal cues. So nonverbal cues, guys, for those who don't understand, it just means body language, essentially. It could be body language, it could be tone, it could be so many different things, but it's essentially all considered nonverbal. Even though tone is verbal, but the verbal part are mostly focused on the words. There's a little bit of a caveat we have to add. When we are talking about nonverbal cues, every person, even though we have similar nonverbals, every person has their own distinct nonverbals. So, for example, you may have heard something like, oh, if a person is speaking to you and their eyes are shifting to the left, it means that they're lying. Listen, that's not true. That is not how nonverbals work. So, to understand how nonverbals work, first, you need to observe a person. You need to see what they do normally and naturally. That's the first thing. So, this is why, if you're doing an interrogation or something like that, you would ask general basic questions first to see how the person behaves with answers and questions that they already know, that are very simple, that they're not going to lie about. Something like, okay, so what's your name? Okay, where do you come from? Awesome. What do you do for fun? What kind of hobbies do you have? Great. Did you have breakfast this morning? Really basic stuff like that. And you can observe what the individual does naturally. Do they naturally look to the left when they are thinking? Do they have their hand on their chin? Do they like tap their head? Do they naturally cross their arms and have closed body language? Or do they naturally have an open body language? Okay. Once you've actually established what that person's nonverbals are like naturally, then from there, you can observe what their nonverbals are like when you ask more difficult questions. Questions that can be more personal, questions that can be a little bit contradictory, or things that they would disagree with you on. So, seeing the differences between their natural and normal nonverbals versus their nonverbals when they feel that the questions are a little more intense or the conversation is a little more pressing, this is a better way to distinguish when a person is actually being honest with you, when they feel comfortable, when they feel uncomfortable, so on and so forth. Sometimes it's not a matter of I want to know if the person's lying to me. Like that's not the biggest deal. But as a communications major, right? As a communications specialist, it's really important to be able to tell when the conversation or the line of questioning that you give someone is making them nervous or is making them feel uncomfortable. For example, there could be situations where the person you are talking to is a good person. They're a perfectly good, honest, nice person, but they might be a victim of someone else. This is something very common that you would see in, like, say, schools with classmates and things like this. Whereas, like, the kid may feel intimidated to tell you, oh, Jay is bullying me, or Jay beat me up, or Jay's stealing my stuff, blah, 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 because he's afraid that Jay is going to hurt him later, or Jay's going to retaliate if he says something. So, in this situation with a kid that you talk to, when you observe their normal nonverbals, and then you ask them, oh, hey, so are you and Jay good friends? What do you think, even if the kid is not going to tell you the truth? What do you think the kid will do with his body naturally the moment you ask him, hey, are you and Jay friends? Think about that. So we're going to call this child, we're going to call him Chris, right? So Chris is being bullied by Jay. Chris does not want to say that he's being bullied by Jay because he's afraid that Jay will retaliate or hurt him. So he's keeping it a secret. Chris has his typical, normal, happy, easygoing nonverbals. At one point in the conversation, you ask Chris, are you and Jay good friends? Very innocently. What do you think Chris is going to do? What is his body going to do naturally? Think about it. So, typically in these situations, Chris is going to feel like suddenly he needs to hide something, but he also doesn't want to seem suspicious because he doesn't want to get in trouble with Jay. So immediately, your body wants to do something called self-soothing. So it's possible that even though Chris normally doesn't do this, he will start rubbing his arm or holding his own hands, right? Rubbing his hands against each other or putting his hand behind his neck, something like this. And this is what we call soothing or self soothing because he feels uncomfortable with the question. And it has some sort of like background trauma where it's like, okay, I know Jay beats me up. Jay's the bully, but I can't say anything. Oh, yeah, me and Jay are good friends, right? The other potential sign will be that they start closing up. If they naturally have open body language and they start crossing their arms, or they stand behind a desk, or they put a book in front of them, or their school bag in front of them to kind of make space between you, who's asking the question, and themselves. This also shows us that maybe Chris is hiding something, right? Obviously, Chris is not the problem, but this is an example of how the nonverbals work. So when you keep silent and you allow the other person to speak, it doesn't only give you an opportunity to actively listen and understand what they are saying, but it also gives you the opportunity to observe the nonverbals better, to observe their body language, to observe their behavior and their movement. If it shifts, if it changes from what they would normally do, then we understand that maybe something is up. So it's not 100% sign, right? But there's a good chance that something may be wrong. All right, so far so good. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's go to the next section. All right, so next talking point encourages reflection. When you are quiet, the other person has time to reflect on their thoughts, leading to deeper and more meaningful conversations. Okay, I believe that that is true to a point, right? If there is silence, it gives the other person time, yes. But one of the things that I think is important to do, even if even if the silence is good to give the other person time, it can also create the discomfort. We all know that. So if you're in a situation where you don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable, but you do want to allow them time to think, then you would just do what I did, which is you would repeat what they said, you will ask for clarification on certain points to make sure you understood correctly. So you say, like, oh, okay, so you're telling me when you were in high school, you actually lived in Europe, but then after high school, you decided to move to Asia. Okay, I see. And you're just reiterating what they said, yes, but it gives them time to continue and think about what it is they were trying to get to, what was the point, and also shows that you were listening. So I would say yes, encourages reflection, but in order for someone to have time to reflect, they need something to be reflected, which is the story or the statements that they are making themselves, not just silence. Silence in a reach to try to get somebody to reflect is probably not the best thing, I would say. All right, let's see. Next talking point, ladies and gentlemen. So please remember, if you are enjoying this conversation, you're enjoying this podcast, please hit the follow button. And if you want to get yourself a membership badge to get your comments pinned up, just hit the gold button right after that. Thank you very much. Feel free to add us on WeChat. Comment live on WeChat is easy to find. And if you want to see the video broadcast, then we can find us on the alternate platform. But on WeChat, we only do the audio now. Okay, next talking point. Silence in negotiation. And we are talking about the power of silence for the folks who are just getting here. Silence in negotiation. It's a power move in negotiation. Staying silent after an offer can pressure the other side to reconsider or sweeten the deal. I like this. I like this. So I have done this myself many times. When we are negotiating a price or a contract or something like this with a client, when they are presenting their offer about what they want to pay for a service or what kind of contract they're trying to organize, I would review it and point out certain things that can be improved and say, what can we do about this? And then I just let them talk. Let them get through their first point, and then you keep looking at it, go, and you wait. And they will negotiate themselves. They will negotiate themselves. You don't need to say a damn thing. It's so fun. Interesting. Silence is a kind of coping mechanism. Every time when I found something is wrong, I started to talk with my daughter. Um, do you mean when you are being silent or when your daughter is being silent? I'm not so sure. But yes, the silence during the negotiation is quite good. But you got to remember that you need to let the other side get through the first point and finish it. And once they finish it, wait a little longer, which is going to allow them to negotiate themselves down. If that's what you're trying to do. If that's what you're trying to do. Yes, powerful, powerful stuff. Next talking point. Displays confidence. So you guys remember what I was saying about like if you can be silent and comfortable, that's like the best thing. Learn to be comfortable in silence. So yes, next talking point makes perfect sense. Silence displays confidence. Being comfortable with silence shows you are in control and not rushing to fill the air with unnecessary chatter. Confidence speaks volumes. Yes. Honestly, from my own observations, it does take a confident person to be silent. You don't only need to be comfortable, it also makes you confident. It's like, yes, I'm okay to be here with you guys. I'm okay to be silent here. There's nothing that we need to do. It's perfectly fine, and I feel perfectly comfortable. Because most people can't do that. It's actually quite difficult. So, yes, I would definitely say that being comfortable in silence definitely displays a sign of confidence. Oh, okay, I see. Well, don't focus on this. You can just do the listening, but let's not get you to write anymore. I see, I see. Okay. My pleasure, buddy. Okay, let's go to our next talking point. Gives time for thought. And this is something that, of course, I spoke about at the very beginning. And a point that Yolanda was pointing out, right? When you are in a tense situation, the best thing you can do is to stay silent, especially because you don't know what to do or how to react in that moment. So thank you, Yolanda, for that one. Yes. You are in a tense situation. The best thing you can do is be silent. Don't say anything, especially if you are not sure what you should do or what you should say in that moment. Pausing before responding allows you to craft a better and more thoughtful answer rather than just reacting impulsively. Yeah, I cannot tell you guys how many times myself and probably you as well, we've probably made a lot of mistakes because we decided to speak or to make a decision on impulse in a moment instead of taking time off away from the situation and away from the emotions of the situation to think. Just think process it, and find the best course of action. Yes, the pauses are necessary. All right. Next talking point, and we will be done soon. Number 9, de escalates conflict. Let's see. Silence in heated discussions can help cool things down. 100%. 100%. If you have a disagreement or you have an argument with somebody and you're yelling and they're yelling back and then you yell back and then they yell back, the only reason we are yelling at each other and we're making our volumes louder and louder, the only reason we do that is because no one is listening. If someone was listening, we would find it unnecessary to yell. We would find it unnecessary to increase volume. And then under those circumstances, then we can probably find some more common ground with more level-headed. Okay? Getting that blood rush through your head is actually not very helpful for thinking, contrary to popular belief. So yes, silence in a heated discussion can help cool things down, giving both parties time to calm emotions and approach the situation rationally, or as rationally as you can approach the situation when things are intense, right? Excuse me. Okay, next one. So, final talking point, folks. Signals respect. By allowing silence, you show the other person that you are not interrupting or cutting them off, demonstrating respect for their thoughts and their opinions. 100%. This is why I said at the beginning of the live stream, I said, when you are silent and someone is talking to you, especially someone that you've met for like the first couple of times or the first time, and they're telling you about their story or their business or whatever, when you are just silent and nodding and okay, let's listen to them, they think that you are a great conversationalist. They're like, wow, this guy's so good at having conversations. But it's just because you let them talk. It's really you just letting them talk, confirming what they said, repeating it back to them, mirroring this kind of stuff. Like, it's amazing how good that makes other people feel. And because they feel good, they believe that you are the reason for that. Your approach to communication and conversation allows them to feel more liberated, more free in the talks, right? And so, of course, they're going to want to talk to you more. They want to be more friendly and closer to you because you allow them to feel good about themselves. It's definitely a great thing if you want to make a good impression, whether it's with clients or anybody else. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. I know most of you should be either starting work or getting to work now. So we are ready to shut down. Please remember, hit that follow button. And to get your VIP badge, make sure you hit the gold button. Of course, we're going to put more priorities on comments from VIP members who are regularly here. You can add me on WeChat and message me directly. If you have any questions or any topic suggestions or ideas, if you need any sort of personal development or business consulting, you can contact me on WeChat as well at Comet Live. That's the same name that's on top, KOMITLIVE on WeChat. And thank you to everybody that sent gifts. 谢谢送礼物的朋友们. Thank you very much. Every little bit counts and helps. I'm not going to say no. It allows the stream to exist because the platform will knock us out if we don't actually make anything for them. Liu Wei, my understanding is tomorrow, Saturday, and tomorrow is still a work day for many people. So what we will do is tomorrow morning, we will also do a live stream. And then we will take Sunday and Monday off, maybe Tuesday off as well. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. Thank you very much. Stay amazing. Stay beautiful. Thank you guys for joining me. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.